In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to plan a non-linear learning map. There are 7 steps that you'll need to follow in order to do this. Number 1, you will need to choose a mind tool. For this example, we are going to use the one called bubble.us, but there are many other ones available for you to use. Once you've chosen a tool to use, the second step is to go ahead and select reusable content. For this example, we are going to actually be trying to teach the students about cooking spaghetti. So we will need to include some target knowledge, which could be a task, and we might even give a pre-assessment to the learner to figure out exactly what he or she already knows about cooking spaghetti. So let's go ahead and add that reusable content to our map. So to use this first, you can sign in, you can create an account, or we're just going to go ahead and start now. So our main content or our main task here is cooking spaghetti. Now, we want to try to be a little bit more specific with a learning map. We want to make sure that we have a clear objective. So I might even add a farther step here. After visiting each learning object or part of the lesson, students will be able to cook and eat spaghetti. All right, so we have our task, we have our clear objective, and we also will probably want to include a pre-assessment as well. So I can either create something that goes underneath this topic or on the same level as this topic, or I'm not exactly sure where I want it to fit. So I'm just going to click off to the side here, and let's go ahead and call this the pre-assessment. And so now we have our content. The next step is we're going to begin breaking down this content into smaller and smaller chunks. So the first kind of big topics that I think about when cooking spaghetti are the ingredients and the steps. So this is underneath the task, so I can hit Control Enter here. So the first thing that I think about is ingredients. And then if I break the ingredients down even farther, I think about, you have about the spaghetti, and then you also have about the sauce, the 2 main ingredients. Another big topic here, you could also have the actual steps that you would need to follow in order to cook spaghetti, which include, you have boiling the water. If I hit the tab button, it will take me over to the next box or node. Boiling water, we've got cooking spaghetti, draining the water, mixing spaghetti and the sauce. And before that, you actually need to make the sauce. And then last but not least, eating the spaghetti. All right, so now that we have our topics and our subtopics and we have that broken down as small as it can go, we are ready to move on to the next step. All right, number 4, identifying the main topics and subtopics. Again, that's kind of what we already did, but we do want to make sure that we have the right amount of content. So we want to make sure that there's no prerequisites that are needed here. So whenever we're actually boiling the water or cooking the spaghetti, there are a couple of things that the learner will have already needed to learn. So boiling the water, we want to make sure that the learner knows how to operate the stove. And cooking spaghetti, you could say that a prerequisite would also be you would have to know how to stir the spaghetti. And then with making the sauce, we could also even add an additional, something that is not necessary, but for the learners who want to go a little bit above and beyond or learn about some additional things, we could even include garnishing. And that kind of fits with making the sauce. So typically with your learning maps, you want to make sure that you're looking for any prerequisites or any additional information. And to make those even stand out, I might even change the color here just so that those are a little bit more clear, that those are my prerequisites. And then I also have an additional information there, which I could do the same color, or maybe I even make that a little bit different. All right. So now that we have the right amount of content and we have everything broken down and organized, our next step is to create the actual learning objects. So if a learner was using this learner map, they would actually be able to click on each of these boxes or each of these nodes, and they would be taken to either a resource, a video, a link, an activity, flashcards, something interactive that they would be reading or doing or learning for each of these different nodes. But for the purpose of this tutorial, that would take too much time. So we're just going to go ahead and leave these nodes as is. But for your actual map, you would make sure that you would create those activities. And then the next step is we need to go ahead and organize those into 3 main branches, or at least have a couple different pathways that the learner can take. So to organize these, I like to think of my maps from left to right. So we're going to start with the pre-assessment here in the corner. And from the pre-assessment, we can move to cooking spaghetti. So I just kind of added an arrow there. There's our main task, our objective, and from there, we could talk about the ingredients. This could be their first choice of pathway, and then we could kind of put the steps down below. So I'm just kind of moving these from left to right. So far we have 2 branches or 2 choices. And ingredients, since this is kind of a main topic and not a subtopic, I'm actually going to delete this and have the learner actually choose from learning about the spaghetti or the sauce. So going from left to right, and then again, I can add those arrows in there to show movement or to show these pathways. All right, and then we're going to put the steps down below, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm actually going to get rid of the steps and try to keep them at the smallest chunk possible. So boiling water and then cooking the water. We've got draining the water and then mixing them together, moving from left to right, eating kind of at the very end over there. Making sauce, I might move up here to the top to kind of go next to sauce. Garnishing, kind of one of those extra steps. So let's see here, from left to right. It looks like we kind of have 2 major branches, but we do have a couple extra things. And as long as we have arrows that kind of go to different places, as long as there's 3 different choices, then you'll have those 3 different branches that learners could follow. All right, last but not least, you're going to link the connected chunks together. So all of these nodes are going to be linked together to show the movement of how the learner would be able to choose kind of their pathway throughout. So from the pre-assessment, again, they're introduced to the task. We want to make sure that from there they have 2 options. Now, if the learner doesn't know how to boil water, we also want to make sure that they have access to this prerequisite here of operating the stove and also stirring to boil the water. Let's see. All right. So right here, we've already created our 3 pathways, because notice there's actually 4 different places that the learner can go. After boiling water, from here, the learner can pick to go to operating the stove, or possibly they need to learn how to stir. And if they don't need those prerequisites, then they can move on to the next step. Maybe they don't want to move on to the next step. Maybe they want to take a break and learn about some of the ingredients. Or maybe they want to start working on the sauce. So there's a couple different options from here where the learner can go. So from cooking spaghetti, we want to go ahead and add a link to the next step, adding some more arrows after draining the water. We want to mix that together. In order to mix it together, we do need to have the sauce made though, so let's add an arrow there. Garnishing, that one's already connected, and I can make sure that there's a link to take the learner back to mixing everything together. And we want to link it to the last step, the post-requisite, eating the spaghetti. So I think I have all of my links in here. And so you can see that there are definitely more than 3 different pathways that the learner could take. And so those are kind of the 7 steps that you're going to want to follow in order to plan a nonlinear learning map.